Okay, guys. So I guess we are live now. I have with me Dr. Jay Smith. I'm honored to have him on the show here. He's, you know what? You remind me of Paul the Apologist. I always think that because this guy's been doing what Paul pretty much did 2,000 years ago. It's like debate people in public in a place called Hyde Park in London, England, and Speaker's Corner. But I'll let you introduce yourself now. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and I'm glad to have you.
Well, thanks a lot, Nick. Listen, this is first time I've met you. You're way over on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast, about 3,000 miles apart. You're up in Canada. I'm down in the United States. But first time that we've ever really met and also been able to dialogue back and forth. So thanks for bringing me on.
You're welcome. So why don't you talk a little bit about, what you have been doing for the last, I don't know, your life's work or what you've been doing in Hyde Park. And I know you live in the United States now, right? You don't live in England anymore?
Yeah, we've come back after 3 years. Let me just give you some background. I'm what you call an Islamicist.
Okay.
Which means an expert in Islam.
Okay.
Not a Muslim expert, but an Islamicist would be someone from outside who's an expert on Islam.
Okay.
And I've been engaging with Muslims for about 38 years now, almost 40. I grew up in India, was born in India, up in the northern part of India, where there are about 200 million Muslims. So I've grown up with Islam all my life.
Oh, wow.
I've done a 2 master's degree, one in apologetics and the other in Islamics. And then I did my doctoral thesis on Islamic polemics and apologetics. So my area of expertise is apologetics and polemics. Let me just define those two. Apologetics is defending the faith. Polemics is going on the offense. So one is defense, offense, much like your football teams you have here. 2 different teams, 2 different skills, 2 different objectives. So I do both. And now what I'm doing is I'm back in the States. I spent 25 years in London. You're right, at Speaker's Corner every Sunday, getting up on a ladder, been taking on about 100, sometimes thousands of Muslims at a time.
You're not allowed to go up on those ladders anymore, are you?
During COVID, no. Right down during the pandemic.
Oh, it's only because of COVID. Oh, okay.
So
I was wondering why they took that away.
Yeah, they'll come back once COVID's finished. So during the pandemic, they're trying to keep them separated, keep them on the ground, and making sure there's 6-foot distance. But that's being broken.
I see. I was wondering why they made you go off the ladder. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's just been since March. So, and they will be back on the ladder. My colleague there, Hatun Tosh, will be back on the ladder again. That's where she feels most comfortable. But most of us have had to revamp our ministries because of COVID, as you probably have as well. And that's why in some ways now I'm busier now than I've ever been in the last 38 years.
Yeah, me too.
I'm having to put up much, you probably as well. And that's because we're all having to put up a lot more videos. We're having to do a lot more research. Everybody's free. They're at home. They're watching. And so these kind of shows are great. So
it's a crazy twist about it. COVID is actually good for some people's stuff. You know what I mean? As long as we don't get the virus or anything. I haven't seen anybody with it, so...
Well, the fact that we have to lock down, the fact that we have to now approach everybody by using Zoom and Skype, and, in this case StreamYard, it's perfect for a pandemic, and that's why.
And there's more people sitting around watching people like us, right? Because like you said, we got all this free time. Yeah, definitely. So I've actually had to defend you a couple times in my comments. Oh, we got a super fat chat already. Hi, big fan, Dr. J. Thanks, Johnson Videos. Yeah, people have actually said, I think obviously it's other Muslims have said that you're uneducated and you don't know what you're talking about. And I've actually been in the comments a couple times pretty sure he's got a PhD and he has quite a bit of education in this field. So I'm honored to have you on here again. And you can basically talk about whatever you wanted, but I just wanted to ask you first about these chains of narrations. And are they the Hadith chains of narrations that Muslim apologists are always bringing up to prove that their Quran is only one Quran and it goes back all the way to Muhammad, and they have hundreds of chains of narration? What do they mean when they say they have hundreds of chains of narration, and how do we actually date that back to prove that these chains of narration are authentic? Would be my first question to you.
Okay, that's a great question, and you're asking. This is a question that everybody should be asking, and that is. They believe, let me just put it this way. We as Christians would never make the claims Muslims make about their Quran.
No.
First of all, there are 4 claims that all Muslims must make about their Quran. Number 1, that the Quran is eternal, that it has always existed in heaven on tablets. And this is internal to the Quran. If you look at chapter 85, verse 22 in the Quran, it says that very thing.
Yeah.
So it's the Quran that makes that claim. It's not that Muslims have made this up.
No.
These preserved tablets have always existed. Therefore, it's co-eternal with God. Now, secondly, that Quran, the book from the tablets, was sent down to a man named Muhammad in between 610 and 632 AD. So that 22-year period, it was sent down piecemeal in two different cities. First, starting in Mecca from 610 to 622, and then in Medina from 622 to 632. So two different cities, two different revelations. If you take the Quran and just split it in half, this Quran goes from, it goes this, since it's in Arabic, it goes from right to left. It goes this direction. Let me get it. It goes the opposite direction that we would do, obviously, because it's in Arabic.
Hebrews like that too, right?
Hebrews does too. So it's a Semitic language. They're both the same from the same background. Now that's the first part. This is the second part. Okay. In English, this would be first. That would be second. Just opposite. Yeah. So this would be. But here's what's interesting. This is the first part of the Quran, but yet this is the second part that was revealed. This is the second part of the Quran, yet this is the first part that was revealed. So this is revealed in Mecca. This is revealed in Medina. Can you see the confusion?
I didn't even know
backwards. No, most people don't. And the reason why is because they go from large size to small size. So the biggest ones are the Medinan. The smallest ones are the Meccan. So it goes the opposite direction. If you have any problem, just turn it upside down. You get the right sequence. Now, here's the problem. It was sent down in that 22-year period, right? But it was never written down while Muhammad was living. Not in any book form. It had been written on bones, stones, and also pieces of bark, and memorized by the companions of the Muhammad, but it was never written down in a book form. That's what the traditions tell us. So when he died, they had to do something, because many of those that had memorized it were killed at the Battle of Yamama in 622. And with them dying, there goes the Quran with them. So they had to call a man named Zayd ibn Thabit to write it down. So that was written down between 632 and 634, that 2-year period, given to Abu Bakr, the caliph at that time, the king. He then gives it to Umar, who's going to be the next caliph, who gives it to his daughter, Hafsa, who puts it under her bed and leaves it there for 20 years. Now, what an idiotic thing to do. If this is the only written text of the Quran, if this is the first written text of the Quran, why would you give it to a woman to put under her bed?
How do we know that's even true? How do you know that's even true?
Exactly. Good point. Everything I'm going to tell you now for the next 5 minutes comes from the 9th and 10th century. These are what the traditions tell us. This is what Al-Bukhari tells us.
So Muhammad died. Sorry, when did Muhammad die? What year did he die?
632.
And when do they say the first things were written down about him?
632 to 634. They're 2 years after he died. But these are all coming. But this is writing in 840, 870. 870. This is written down about this.
Okay, so all that's coming from the 9th century.
So 240 years after the fact, the 9th century. Keep that under your hat, because you're going to see there's a lot of problems with that. Let me just give you a compliment. If we're talking about the Bible, so here we have the Bible, right? We know that the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That we give credit to them. Matthew and John would have been eyewitnesses to what they saw and heard. They wrote down what they saw and heard. Mark and Luke would have got it from the eyewitnesses.
No, Jay, according to Shabir Ali, we don't know who wrote it. It wasn't written by Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. That's one of their famous lines. Sorry, I just.
And he's got an agenda.
Yeah,
but obviously we know that Matthew, Mark, and Luke would have been written within 30 to 40 years of Christ's death. John would have been written later, within 60 years of Christ's death. So all of the 4 Gospels were written within 60 years of Christ's death, while some of the disciples were still living. The eyewitnesses were still there, John himself. So if you look at that, if we were dependent on but how do we get this? Where do we get this from? We get it from the early church fathers. They write about this. They write in their letters. Almost immediately, they write in their letters.
Plus, we have so many manuscripts and papyri and fragments, and we don't need to make the claims that the Quran makes, because it's awesome having the truth on your side. I mean, it's easy to win an argument. Yeah. If
you talk about manuscript evidence, we have about 5,800 Greek manuscripts, 10,000 Latin Vulgates, 9,000 in other languages. That's about 24,000 manuscripts that we can go to that we do for looking at our Bible. Now, but if you're asking, how do we know how the Bible was written or who wrote it? If we were dependent on how we know what the Bible was and who wrote it, all that, as what the Muslims have for their Quran, we would have nothing. There would be no Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John until the 3rd century.
300 years. 300 years, right after. That's right.
Third century, about 240 years. In this case, 240 years to 300 years, because the Tafsir is not written down until 923, which is the 10th century.
Wow.
How would we defend the Bible? How would we defend the Bible if we could not even look at it, or even know what the story is, or even know how it was put together for 200 to 300 years after Jesus Christ?
That's like longer than the Gnostic Gospels. Wow.
Absolutely. Can you then understand why Muslims are really having a problem today, because they cannot support even the story about the Quran is written in 870.
Jay, I don't understand why they're Muslims. I think it's because of birth rates, and they're just born into it, most of them, to tell you the truth. Because if anyone does actual study of both manuscripts, Bible, Quran, like there's no way you could come to an intellectual conclusion that Islam is true. Like you just can't. I wasn't born into a religious family or anything. I came to be a Christian on my own. Like if Jesus did the things that Muhammad is crediting to doing, I wouldn't be a Christian. Let's just put it that way. But
okay, but let's talk to Jesus versus Muhammad. Let's stick to the Quran.
Yeah,
because I really want to. This is something that's come up in the last 2.5 months.
I'm not trying to get you off topic. Sorry, I'll let you continue.
That's all right. I'll get you back on topic if you do. So
okay,
don't worry about it. Because it's very important that we ask these questions right now, Nick, because this is absolutely important in what's been happening since June 8th of 2020. It's just been out it's just gone out in the last 2.5 months. That's why.
Do you want to give them a little refresher as to what happened quickly?
We'll get into it. We'll get into that. But let's just keep on what we've just been talking about. So everything we know about the Quran, written by first a man named Zayd ibn Thabit, who was a secretary of Muhammad during the time of Abu Bakr, 632 to 634. That Quran, however, was not copied. No copies were made of it. It stayed under a bed for 20 years until 652. So we're talking about 20 years later. Muhammad's been dead for 20 years. Another caliph named Uthman decides that he needs to have another Quran. Why? Because as Muslims were in another battle way up in Azerbaijan, they were coming across other Muslims from Syria and Iraq, and they were listening to the Quran that they were reciting, and they were completely different recitations, different Qurans. They actually went to blows with each other. And so the Meccans and the Medinans come running back down to Arabia. They come to Uthman, the caliph at that time, and they said, what are we going to do? We must not be like the Christians and Jews and have many different Qurans. Therefore, we must make one Quran in the Qurayshi dialect. That means the dialect that was used by Muhammad, the dialect that was there for Mecca and Medina, which makes sense, a dialectical form. One Quran. So what does Uthman do? He orders the same guy that wrote the first Quran to get that Quran and to revise the Quran and write it in a final form called the Qurayshi Quran. So that's this book supposedly that I have in my hand right here. Every Muslim will say that's this Quran. Okay? The Arabic, not the English, but the Arabic. All right? The part that's on the Arabic right here. You can see the Arabic there. So that was done in 652. And then 5 Qurans were sent from copies to Mecca, Medina, Basra, Baghdad, or Kufa, and Damascus. The 5 cities, the 5 major cities, with this Qurayshi dialect, so that there would be only one Quran. And what did he do with all the other Qurans that disagreed? He burned them, destroyed them. So there were no Kufan Qurans, no Basran Qurans, no Damascus Qurans, no Syrian Qurans, no Iraqi Qurans. There was only one Quran, and that's the Qurayshi Quran, basically the Arabic that's found in the middle part of Arabia. That was done according to the Islamic tradition. Again, I keep on saying the Islamic tradition. Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, and Al-Tabari. They're the ones that tell us how this was done. So that was happening in 652, mid-7th century. Okay, here's the million-dollar question. What happened to those 5 Qurans? Where are they today?
No one
Where
knows.
is the first one that was created in Abu Bakr's time? Where is the second one that was created at Uthman's time in 652? Where are the 5 copies that went to Mecca, Medina, Basra, Kufa, and Damascus? Ask any Muslim that.
It's a good
question.
Show me
one Quran, that's 114 surahs, that's this Quran, just like this, from the 7th century, that's exactly like the Quran I have in my hand here. Not one exists today. Oh, listen, I do have some of the earliest manuscripts. Now these, you can't buy on the market anymore because they're all out of print. Take a look at this one here. This is the Topkapi manuscript.
Wow.
This is one of the earliest manuscripts in existence.
Wow.
This cost me £400 to buy this. That's about $600 to buy this.
That's more.
You can't just buy it. You can't
like $800 Canadian. That's crazy.
And I had to get it 10 years ago to be able to afford before it was all sold out. This is called the Topkapi manuscript. This is one of the earliest 6 manuscripts.
I've heard you talk about that a lot. Yeah, the Topkapi.
No, This is the Topkapi. This is from Istanbul. They're in Turkey, in Turkey, the country of Turkey. Let me show you this one here. Get it the right side up. These are awfully big. This is what we know as the Petropolitan manuscript. Oh, this is huge. This is the Petropolitan manuscript. This is the one that you can find in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, France. Now, this is an 8th century Quran. The Topkapi is a mid 8th century to late 8th century Quran. This one is an early 8th century Quran. Those are two different Qurans I've just shown you. The Topkapi has about 99. It's claimed that it has about 99% of the Quran in it. It's from 720 up to 770. So it
claims that it has 99% of the Quran, but does it?
They claim they have, but a lot of it has damage. It has water damage. They don't keep care of the Quran, so it's much of it is missing. Other scholars say there's about 78% that you can actually read. Nonetheless, it's mid to late 8th century. The Petropolitan is early 8th century to mid 8th century.
So what's the earliest Quran that they actually have, like in a museum? Is it the 1924 Cairo?
That's not the earliest Quran. This is one of the other earliest Qurans. This is one in the British Library. This is the Mu'il Quran, the 2165. This only has 40. This only goes up to Surah 43, so only has about half of the Quran. There's 114 surahs. That only goes up to Surah 43. I've got 3, and then I have the St. Petersburg Quran, which is again a very old Quran, and this is in the Mu'il script. That's why it's such a prized possession. Sorry, that's the Abbasid scripts. So every one of these Qurans, we now there are 6 major ones. I have 4 of the 6 major ones right here with me. Others have others, because these are now being studied for the first time. And see, I couldn't even say what I'm going to say now 10 years ago. In 2014, I was able to I was given a doctoral thesis by a scholar, Dr. Daniel Brubaker, who has actually looked at these 6 plus 4 others, 10 manuscripts. And he was looking to see whether or not they were complete, and he found that none of them were complete. He was looking to see what their dates were, and of course, they were all 8th and 9th century. And then he wanted to see if they were all agreeing with the Quran that we have in our hand today, which is this little blue one that I keep showing you, this little guy here. This is the one that we use today. You notice I keep it small for a reason. You'll see why later on. This is known as the Hafs Quran, H-A-F-S, named after a guy named Hafs, a student named Hafs, who died in 796. That's late 8th century. So, late 8th century. This Quran is not from the 7th century. This Quran is not as old as those I just showed you. This Quran comes from much, much later. But this is the Quran you just referred to 2 minutes ago. This is the 1924 Quran.
Oh, okay. That's the one that most people use nowadays.
90% of the Muslim world now uses this Quran. Okay. But hold on a minute. Where does this come from?
I have no idea, honestly.
Does it come from Mecca? No.
No.
Does it come from Medina? No. Does it come from Syria? No. Where does it come from? Before I get into that, and before I give you that answer, I'll just leave that question there.
Okay.
Let's go back to the 7th century. Remember I said at the 7th century that you had all these manuscripts. Supposedly you have Uthman sending out 5 manuscripts, 5 different Qurans to 5 cities. We can't find any of those 5. Those ones I just showed you are the earliest manuscripts we have. Not one of them is complete. Not one of them is from the 7th century. Not one of them agrees with each other. And not one of them agrees complete with the Quran that I have in my hand today.
Wow.
Now, why have Muslims told us this?
About how many manuscripts do you think there are of the Quran compared to, like,
Well, there are probably thousands, but they're all very recent ones. If you're talking about early manuscripts.
Yeah, early manuscripts, yeah.
And Nick, do you mean complete manuscripts?
Well, say like when we say we have 5,000 Old Testament or biblical manuscripts of the New Testament around that time era, like how many of the Quran do you think, like, are those complete manuscripts that we say that we have, or no?
0.
Really?
Not one is complete.
Oh.
We've been asking Muslims all the time. I've been doing this for 25 years. Since 1995, when I did my first debate with Dr. Jamal Badawi, I asked this question: can you show me, can anybody show me a complete Quran from the 7th century that's unchanged? Now, I didn't do it in the debate I had with him, but what I have been doing, I've been asking that question since I took the course with Dr. Gerald Haughty in 1994. So for 25 years, I've been asking the question you just asked. Where is there one manuscript from the 7th century? None. Where is there one complete manuscript from the 2nd century or from the 8th century, as we now know it today, as we would call it today? None. Where is there a complete manuscript from the 9th century? None. Where is there a complete manuscript from the 10th century? You notice I'm now getting to 300 years later. We can't even find a complete manuscript that's exactly like the Quran we have in our hand today. So when and where did these Qurans start to appear? Now we're getting to what happened on June 8th. Once the 7th century leaves, the 8th century comes into play. And in the 8th century, about 736, a Quran is introduced. This one right here. Let me just put the camera over here so what I'm doing. I'm going to show you these ones here, but I want to show you this one right here. This Quran, now this is a modern publishing of it, okay? This Quran is introduced in 736, or he dies in 736, so it's probably written between 716 and 736. This is known as Ibn Amir. Ibn Amir dies in 736. He writes this Quran. Now, this Quran is the earliest of the 7 major Qurans. The 7 major Qurans that were introduced in the 8th century, not the 7th century. This is over 100 years. Muhammad died in 632, right? So this is over 100 years later. You get this Quran. Okay? Now, after him comes this guy, Ibn Kathir. This is not the Ibn Kathir of the tradition. This is not the Ibn Kathir of the commentaries. This is the Ibn Kathir of the earliest or second earliest Quran. He dies in 738. Again, over 100 years after Muhammad. Are you following that? These two Qurans are completely different. They are not the same Qurans.
Like how different are they?
Well, there's thousands of differences between them.
Wow.
In fact, we have looked at 23 of them and we found 93,000 differences.
Wow.
But let me just show you this one here. Rather than go through all of them and bore you, let me just look at these two. These are the two most important of all the Qurans today. Let me just get so the camera can see that.
It's just because, you know what, Jay, it wouldn't even really bother me that much, but it's just like every single Muslim debate I've ever seen, and even with you included, they always bring up the reliability of the New Testament and how do you know what is written in the Bible? And there's so many discrepancies and errors in your biblical manuscripts. You know, it's like their go-to thing. So that's kind of why
Now, from tonight on, you can now ask this question. Yeah. These are the two most popular Qurans in the world today. This is the Hafs. This is the Warsh. This is the one that's used by about 90% of the world. This is used about 7% of the world. Nonetheless, they're the two most popular. Between these two books, there are 5,000 differences that we have found. Wow. 5,000 differences. Now, this is what happened back in 2016 when we held up 26 of these different Qurans there at Speaker's Corner. Yeah. And Muhammad Hijab was sitting there and saw what we were doing and had never really realized that these actually existed. He had not even heard about this. That's why he asked all the Muslims to leave and not to listen to us. But that was 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, actually.
This has been... You can see what's been going on in his head. Well, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do? Let me ask Yasser Qadhi, the world's leading authority here in the Western world from Houston, Texas, got his doctorate at Yale University on the Quran.
That was a good video. I'm going to put a link to Jay's channel in my description, you guys, and I encourage you to check out his channel. He's a really knowledgeable guy. If you want to learn any more after this, go check out his channel, subscribe. Check them out.
If you want to go to one video that says everything that I'm saying right now, you can go to the video. Let me just put it up here so I can see it myself. If you want to go to this video, go up to Fander Films. That's my channel.
Here, if you want to share your screen really quick, Jay, you can show them.
Well, I'm just going to show you right now. It's I put it up a week ago, just a week ago. Okay. It's called A Crushing Critique of the Contradicting Qira'at Quran. So it's all alliteration. I love it, alliteration. So it's called The Crushing Critique of the Contradicting Qira'at Qurans. It's 2 hours long, and everything you need to know about this preservation argument is in that video. So you can go ahead and put that up.
I'll probably watch that myself.
It's 2 hours, so sit down, get some coffee, put your feet up, and just enjoy what you're going to see.
For sure.
Because I go through every one of these arguments, and I do it systematically, and I do it visually. I put timelines up there so you can see exactly where this is. So here he is. He comes to Yasser Qadhi. He's in England. Yasser Qadhi's in Houston. And he asks him very simply, this is about an hour and 45-minute interview, about an hour and 16 minutes into it. You're not going to see it anymore because it's been taken down. They deleted this whole interview as
I encourage you guys to watch this interview. It's a really good one.
So go up and watch that. You can see the interview. I put it up there. I put it up there 2 months ago.
Having a pint there, are you?
No, that's actually iced tea.
Oh,
Everybody thinks I'm drinking beer. I'm sorry about Nick. I love beer, but not when I'm talking to you.
That's okay.
I'm just going to iced tea. And most people in England don't have no idea what I'm doing because that doesn't exist in England. And that's
iced tea?
anathema.
Oh, I guess they love their beer there, yeah. So, sorry, Jay, I keep getting you off topic. What was it that you wanted to talk about? You said there's something important you wanted to talk about, something that's been going on since a few months ago. You wanted to bring it up, didn't you?
Nick, this is it. This is it, Nick. Okay, this is it. This is the topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about that interview that happened 2.5 months ago on June 8th. On June 8th, he asked him a simple question. What are we going to do about all these different Qurans?
Yeah.
Yusuf Qadi said, do not ask me this question in public.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah, he said it's dangerous. We shouldn't ask these questions. That's exactly what this is. The most difficult.
This is the most difficult problem that we have as scholars in Islam. Please don't ask me this in public and not on camera and not in a 20-minute soundbite. Now, he had already been going for an hour and 14 minutes.
I'm going to put a link to this interview after, guys, that he's talking about. So after this show, you can check it out. I'll put a link in the description after the stream to that interview.
Now, after he said that, Yusuf Qadi came back to him. He said, this should be an easy question. Which Quran is it going to be? Is it going to be the Warsh Quran? Is it going to be the Hafs Quran? Is it going to be the Ibn Kathir's Quran? Is it going to be the Ibn Amir Quran? Which Quran is it? He had 30 that he could go to because there are now 30 official Qurans that are made. And you can go up on Wikipedia and just put Qira'at. Qira'at. Go up on Wikipedia and they're all listed there. All 30 of them. We showed 26 of them 4 years ago. They're still being published. They're still being printed. I just ordered these 7 2 weeks ago. So you can still get them here in Canada or there in Canada, here in the United States. Yusuf Qadi said, listen, please don't ask me this question. So Hijab said, is this the crisis of faith you had 25 years ago in 1995?
Yusuf Qadi's a leading Islamic scholar, right?
He is the leading Islamic scholar in the United States today.
He's I don't go to. Right?
He has, I think, on his YouTube channel, he has something like 340,000 subscribers. Yeah. I mean, he is not only an academic, he's also a YouTuber. He does both, so he covers both fields.
So this is where Muslims go to get questions about their faith and stuff. To this
He is
guy.
the one that they all go to. He is the highest respected because of the fact that he is a populist and an academic simultaneously.
And he's saying we shouldn't ask this question. It's dangerous. I seen the interview. He's like, this isn't something you want to ask. He's like, I can't answer it right now. And like, yeah, that was pretty crazy.
And then he says, I did not have a crisis of faith. I had a crisis of knowledge. Huge distinction. And he says, in Islam, we have a respect for the Quran. And we have a line that we don't go beyond. He called it the red line. In Islam, we have this red line that we go beyond. But when he went to Yale University, there was no line. And Yale University, they can ask any question they want. There is nothing that you don't ask at Yale. As you can see with most of our universities here in the West, we don't have this line that you can't ask. You can ask anything you want of the Bible. In fact, that's where you get historical criticism from. Redacted criticism, source criticism, lower and higher criticism, literary criticism. These are all come out of the Bible from having asked these questions of the Bible. And the Bible has passed every one of those criticisms. Hey, so Jay, here he was at Yale University. And yeah, go ahead.
Can we address this guy in the chat? It's kind of on topic. He says, Jay, show us the difference written in it. You didn't show anything yet. You're showing just the different covers and sizes of the Quran, not the material. So this guy's pretty...
When you go up to a crushing critique of the Quran, I show 20 differences right there. Go up and see it. You'll see slide by slide. I don't have slides in front of me. Okay. You'll see slide by slide where I go through and I show difference after difference after difference after difference.
Yeah, he's not making it up.
A week ago, I was with Al-Fadi, who is an Arabist. He is a Saudi Arabian. Arabic is his mother tongue. He's doing his doctorate in this area. He speaks fluent Arabic and he speaks fluent English. We went through 25 of these differences. That's all going to be coming up in about a week, starting next week. We're going to show you just how every one of these differences not only change the words, not only change the sentences, they change the meaning, they change the practice in some case, and even the theology in some cases.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask you. Does it actually change like the whole theology, or is it just like in the Bible where it's instead of it's like a, or little differences?
You're going to see where you're going to see where some of them change enormously. Now, the man who's probably done the best work on this is Dr. Bernie Power. Dr. Bernie Power out of Australia has spent almost 20 years studying the Kiraat differences, and he's the one that has actually done all the work on comparing the Warsh with the Hafs. And he has found the 5,000 differences. He puts them into 11 different categories, grammatical categories. That's all in my video that I put up a week ago. It's all his material. I'm borrowing it from him. He let me use it. Go up and see that. And on that, we will show you that there are nominative differences, there are genitive case differences. There are, as far as when it comes to male and female differences, you'll see over and over again in every case, these are grammatical differences that change the meaning, even change the practice, and in some cases change the theology and doctrine. This is what Dr. Shabir Ali has been saying over and over again since May 19th. So what if there are differences? They don't change one meaning, they don't change one practice, they don't change one belief. We're going to show you how they change it, but that's not even the point. That's not even the point. If you even have one word or one letter difference, remember, that's what the Muslims have been saying for as long as I've been in this work. Dr. Yasser Qadhi has said the Quran is exactly the same. There's not one word, not one letter that has been changed in the last 1,400 years.
Well, it's supposed to be handed down from God, right? So
we found 93,000 words and 93,000 letters that have been changed, and that's just us in the last. That's since 2014 in the last 6 years. Sorry, since 2016 in the last 4 years. We have found 93,000. That's the team in London that's doing this. Folks, Muslims have been lying to us all these years, and we're saying we're tired and we're fed up with these lies. You've got to now start looking at your Quran. Now, what's happened because of that interview, and because finally at the end of 25 minutes of going through that, Yasser Qadhi asked him a second time, I'm going to give you a blank Musaf. Which one are you going to write here? Is it going to be the Hafs? Is it going to be the Warsh? Finally, he said, they're all the Quran. All 30 of them are little Quran. So you mean a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from that? Yes, a little bit from Hafs, a little bit from Warsh, a little bit from Qalun, a little bit from Nafi. You can just take a little bit and stir them all around and you get the Quran. Which means all 93,000 differences are the Quran.
Wow.
Now, what do you think that did to Muslims watching that? As a result of that, by putting them both up on their channel, both Muhammad Hijab and Yasser Qadhi, putting them up on their channels, they got such a backlash from Muslims who were saying, I'm leaving Islam because of what you have said. You cannot have one word, not one letter difference. You cannot admit to this. And because there was such a backlash, because Muslims were claiming that because on Judgment Day he was going to be held responsible, that he ever admitted that there were even one change, not let alone 93,000 changes, that they finally had to take down that video from both. They had to delete them from both of their YouTube sites. Muhammad Hijab had to delete it within a week. He had to delete that 25 minutes.
He's got a lot of subscribers too. Muhammad Hijab, doesn't he? He's pretty popular.
He's got something like 300,000 subscribers as well. So they're both up there. But what's fascinating to me is that how Muslims cannot answer this question, and we're still asking the same question. Even your viewer that's coming up says, show me an example. Go up and we'll show you the examples, and then come back to me, because I'm not going to sit there and show you right now and open this Quran and open that Quran, because you can't even see the words on it. So
I can't even understand Arabic. Like, what are you going to do? Point out to this and that? Like,
but they're all there, and this is
even the Muslim. Like you said, though, even the Muslim apologists agree that there's like Shabir Ali and stuff. They agree that there's differences. You know, it's not like a thing they can hide. They just say that the differences don't matter, like you said, right? But they do.
Yeah, and the fact that they all agree that they're there. But see, look, they're talking only about 30 Qurans. That's Dr. Shadi Nasser has just come out with a book where he's saying there's not just 30 Qurans. There may be as many as 700 different Qurans between the 8th and 10th century. Between the 8th and 10th century, you had such a proliferation of Qurans. And the reason why there was such a proliferation of Qurans is for the first time, they started using dots and vowels. There are 5 dots and 3 vowels that can be added to the text. Now, remember, I don't know, probably many of you don't know Arabic, but Arabic is dependent on 16 letters that they existed in the 7th century. Today there are 28 letters. What happened between 16 and 28? Where did the other 12 come from? Well, they all came because nobody could read those 16 letters. There were so many different ways of reading them that they had to make differences between them. One little smiley face, you can put 5 different dots. 1 dot above is a na, 2 dots above is a ta, 3 dots above is a tha, 1 dot below is a ba. 2 dots below is a ya. It could be na, ta, tha, ba, ya. 5 different letters depending on where you put the dots. So they had to add these dots. That all happened in the 8th century. Once the dots had been added, then everybody could start putting dots wherever they wanted. And that's why you had all these different Qurans.
Yeah, because it sounds like it'd be easy, to make a discrepancy by accident if like one little dot.
And there were so many, tens of thousands of differences that a man named Ibn Mujahid in 936, look at the date, that's the 10th century. He was the one that chose the first 7, and then he chose the next 14. That makes 21. And then another man named Al-Jazari, look at the dates, 1429. Nick, that's the 15th century. That's 800 years after Muhammad. He chose another 3, along with another 6, which made another 9. So now by the end of the 15th century, there were 30 different Qurans out of over 700. Out of 700, they whittled it down to 30. But not one of those 30 were the same. The fact that they even have different names proves that every one of them was different. And that's why Shabir Ali and Yasir Qadi finally had to admit on May 19th and June the 8th that, yes, we have different Qurans, but they don't change any meaning. No. Oh, I love it. You know, and this is what I said to Shabir Ali. Have you looked or even aware of where the 93,000 differences are? Have you looked and written up on any of these 93,000 differences? We just went to Surah 98, verse 6 to 98, verse 6. And we looked at 2 words, completely different words from within the same verse. He spent an hour and a half trying to defend that. Al-Fadi, who is my colleague, who speaks fluent Arabic, knows Arabic grammar, just ran circles around him. And he says, you're not even an Arabist. You're from Pakistan. Actually, he's from Toronto. But he thinks he knows Arabic, but he's actually knows better Urdu than he knows Arabic, or whatever the language that he grew up with in his mother tongue. These are not Arabists, and that's why the Arabs have not done their homework. And that's why it's interesting that the Arabs have not gone back to these 93,000 differences. We in the West have done all the work for them. And we're the ones that are finding all the different Qurans. We're the ones that are finding the differences between them. We're the ones that are finding not only the differences in meaning, but also in tone and also in belief. So that's what's been happening in the last 2 months.
Okay, now, we need like a million more. We need a million more.
That's just one problem. That's just one problem. That's just one problem. There are many more problems. Let me just ask any Muslim out there to answer me this. You believe that Muhammad was born in 570 and died in 632. Where do you get that story from? Show me where you get the story that he was born in Mecca and died in Medina in 570 and in 632. Show me where you get the idea that he lived even in a place called Mecca.
Yeah,
better yet,
there was controversy about that.
Show me any reference to a city called Mecca before 741. Muhammad died in 632. For 100 years after his death, we can't find any reference to a city called Mecca at all.
Not only that, Jay, but how long until Muhammad started showing up on coins in that region?
You've looked at my videos then. The coins are a whole nother category. And see, the coins we've only looked at this year. The coins have been around since the 7th century. If you look at if you ask any numismatic site, look at the coins. See, the coins are great, Nick, because coins don't disintegrate, they don't deteriorate. They're as pristine today as the day they were minted. And you need to look at the coins from 620, 630, 640 up to 660. Look at every one of those coins. They are Arab coins. They are written by Arab rulers. What do? They don't have radio. They didn't have television. They didn't have newspapers. How did they announce themselves when they came to power? They minted coins, and they put their name on it. And they also put a reference of a religious, of the religion they belong to. And they put the date, and they put the name of the place where they was minted. Those are all on all the coins. Take a look at those coins. All the way up until Muawiyah in 660, all the coins have crosses on them. They are Christians. There is no Muslim coin whatsoever. In 660, Muawiyah comes to power. He introduces the Umayyad Caliphate, and from 660 up until 680, when he dies, he has his coins with his name on it, and he calls himself the leader of the Mu'min, which means of the believers. He uses the word Allah. There is no reference to Muhammad. There is no reference to Mecca. There is no reference to people called Muslim. There is no reference to a religion called Islam. There is nothing from the Quran on those coins. On the backside of every one of his coins, he has Zoroastrian fire altars. Hold on a minute. If he was a Muslim, what's he doing as a Zoroastrian? All the coins in the eastern part of his have Zoroastrian fire altars. All the coins in the western side of his empire have crosses, proving that he was neither a Muslim He was possibly either a Zoroastrian or as a Christian. And the first coin that we see that actually is a Muslim coin is not till the time of Abd al-Malik in 692. And then in 696, Abd al-Malik introduces the coin that really support and shows that he is a Muslim, because there's the Shahada on it. And then you have the Bismillah on the back. And then you have all these references that are Quranic. All of them are anti-Christian, attacking Jesus Christ, which is the same references that you have in the Dome of the Rock, built in 691 in Jerusalem, which is the same material that's also introduced on his Caliphate Protocols that he introduces in 692, proving that he is the first to introduce this concept of there is only one God and Muhammad is his prophet, if that is to do with Muhammad.
It's
the idea of prophethood, that only comes into play as a man in 730. So that's late into the 8th century. So all the men, but take a look. Here's another thing you need to look at. When Muslims say that all of the people were facing Mecca when they were praying, the Qibla, take a look at what Dan Gibson has found. This is his book, and this book has just destroyed that. Now, this man spent 25 years
I've learned a lot from you, Jay. That's the one where all the mosques aren't facing Mecca, right? Until up to...
Here's a fellow Canadian. This is a fellow Canadian. His name is Dan Gibson. Yeah. And he spent from 1989 to 2005. He spent year after year going to all these mosques. Bless his heart. And then he went to over 100 mosques. He went physically to the mosque. He took he found the Qiblas on every one of these mosques. Many of them are destroyed. They only have foundations. So he had to look at the foundation to find where the Qiblas were. And he used Astra satellite to find out the dimensions. And he found that every one of the mosques up until 706. Remember, Muhammad died in 632. The Qibla was canonized according to the traditions. The 9th century traditions was canonized in 624. Every mosque that he could find up until 706 are facing Petra. Not one of them is facing Mecca. So when is the first mosque that's facing Mecca? Not till 727.
So which was it? That's
over 100 years after Muhammad.
One of the caliphs then came from Mecca probably and wanted to maybe make a name for himself. Like, I'm just wondering why they would go about making up this story about Mecca and Muhammad being from there. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you this question. Can you show me any reference to Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, the first 4 caliphs, anywhere on any documentation, anywhere from the 7th century?
Probably not.
We can't find any reference to these 4 caliphs. We can't find any reference to Muhammad as a prophet from any documentation in the 7th century. We can't find any reference to people called Muslims, people called Islam, until 692. 692, the name Islam is introduced. 692, the name Muslim is introduced. 692, you have the Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, that there's only one God but God. Muhammad is the prophet of God. That is introduced in 692. It's introduced on the coins, it's introduced on the Dome of the Rock, and it's introduced on the Caliphate Protocols. From that time on, then you start seeing Islamic nomenclature. But that, you still don't see any Qurans. There's no Qurans. The earliest Quranic material that we can find is on the Dome of the Rock, on the inner ambulatories. Take a look at those inscriptions. They are not like the Quran we have today.
You have an interesting job.
Well, we're showing that in every category. Whether it's documentary evidence, whether it's manuscript evidence, whether it's archaeological evidence, whether it's numismatic evidence, in every case we're finding the same story, that Islam is a later redaction introduced by Abd al-Malik in 692, because everything before him is either Christian or Zoroastrian. These names of all these different caliphs. Now can you understand why the earliest story of Muhammad, his earliest biography, is introduced by Ibn Hisham in 833? The earliest sayings of Muhammad are not introduced till 870. This is the 9th century, redacting it back 200 years. How can you believe something that's 200 years too old?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
I've lost you.
Oh, hello?
Nick, are you there?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Nick?
Yeah, I can hear you. What happened there?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you, yeah.
You can hear me fine? Okay.
Yeah. That's
somehow I can't hear you anymore.
Okay, hold on. Give me a second, just one sec here. Microphone.
Say something.
Hello?
Still
Hello?
can't hear you.
Hello. Maybe if I leave and come back, refresh it.
Folks, you can see, if you're still on, you can see this is my studio. This is where I do everything. Those are my lights. I only have garage lights. Okay, Nick, you're back on?
You hear me?
Nope, still can't hear you.
Oh, what? That's so crazy. What is going on here?
Now, let's just see if am I off or are we both off for the audience? Can the audience see and hear us?
I don't know what's going on here. Hello. Hello. Your browser has lost connection to your camera. Make sure you have the right camera selected. Wow, what's going on?
Okay, looks like I'm just alone here. I'll just keep going. So until Nick gets back, let me just go ahead and finish what we're doing. And one of the things that I would like to make sure that people are aware of is that everything that we have been exposing, and I've been doing it for now 25 years. In the past, especially in the 1990s, whenever I would refer to all these things that are missing, the comeback from Muslims has always been, yes, but that's just an argument from silence. And the argument from silence doesn't mean that they're silent, because silence the argument can go both ways. That's just that we haven't found the material to support what we're saying. Now, that was good and that worked okay in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Since 2016, when we came across all the Qur'an, all these different Qurans, and since that 2017, when this was then printed with all the Qiblas, this is no longer an argument from science. These are actual, every one of these, you can see, these are actual mosques. So he's gone to the mosque. So the mosques no longer are silent. They are screaming to be heard. And so suddenly now, all the arguments are not from silence. In every case, what we're finding is, and I just want to show you an example here. So every one of these mosques that you see here, the picture of the mosque, and then you see where the different qiblas are from different categories, and then you see the dimensions. Every time you see one of these, you will see that this place is full. That is not from silence. That is evidence from the 7th century. That is evidence from the 8th century. Now we're looking at these qira'ats. These are all evidence from the 8th century. These are not from silence anymore. So the argument from silence, and that was on the Muslims. The Muslims now have to tell us, why is it they have all these different Qurans? Why is it that not one of these Qurans are the same? Why is that all these Qurans are different? And not only are they different, they're very damaging, because the fact that they're so different, that there are 93,000 differences, and I just have 7 of them here, that no longer is from silence. Now they are arguing from silence. They're going to have to tell us why. Where is the original one? Where is the first one? Look at the manuscripts that we have here. The manuscripts are not silent anymore. These are manuscripts that we now have bought. We now have them. We can look at them. We can read the Arabic in them. This has 2,270 variants. That means words or phrases in this book that are different from the Quran we have today. And yet this Quran supposedly was only written between 720 to 770. Therefore, it's 8th century. And it doesn't even correspond to the Quran we have today. This is probably one of the best ones they have. We could go to the Husayni manuscript. That's probably the early 9th century manuscript. It is full of coverings. There's one page where there are 8 coverings where they've completely covered the line. They covered the words. Why are they covering it? Because they're censoring it and they're changing it, and then they're writing over top of it, and that's where they're standardizing it. So all of this is now coming up, and that's why, folks, it's no longer an argument from silence on our side. When Muslims tell me that we know that there was a man named Muhammad who lived in 570 to 632, I say, okay, that's all from the 9th and 10th century. You're telling me that. What about the 7th century? Show me from the 7th century. Prove to me that there was a man named Muhammad. Prove to me that he lived in a place called Mecca. Prove to me that there was a city called Mecca in the 7th century. Your Quran says that in chapter 21 of your Quran that Abraham lived in Mecca. Look at chapter 21, verses 51 to 71, and it says that he was there in Mecca, that he went into the Kaaba and he destroyed all the idols there. If we can't find any reference to Mecca in any historical source, it's not on any map. Here comes Nick. Hi, Nick, are you there?
Stream, because you have to add me to the stream because you're the host now.
Oh, I'm the host now. Okay, where are you? I don't see you. Now, we've shifted sides. See, this is like just what I'm saying. Now I'm the driving seat, and you're like the Muslims who are no longer the driving seats. Okay, can you show me? I'm looking at. I don't see you yet, so you need to come on to the live stream, and then I'll bring you on board.
It says I am on here.
Okay.
You're backstage. Only the host can see you. The host may add you to the broadcast at any time.
Well, let me see. I don't see you here. Huh, isn't that interesting? You're the show. Everyone can see and hear you, it says, but I don't see you. I only see myself. I'm not to take over. I mean, this is your show. This is your live stream. It's kind of odd, isn't it? I'm talking to everybody here. I am live. I can see on the internet there that I am live, and I'm all alone. And I'm feeling very lonely not having you around, Nick, because this is really your show. This is not my show.
Let me try this.
It says there are 31 people who are watching.
Ooh, that's pretty good for just getting it going. I mean, usually if you have like 100 people going on a live show, that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna try.
I don't know how to get you on since I can't see you to get you on. I don't know what to do unless I leave the studio and we shut this down and we do this at another time.
Try to log into StreamYard and it just sent me a code, so just give me 1 sec.
Let me see if I can find a code to send you. Hold on a minute. Let me just look here.
004002. I might have the stream. Hold on.
Okay. Now, while he's coming on, let me continue until he gets here, so we can at least keep you all. At least you can see. Okay, I see people are saying things over here. I can't see Nick. That's true. There's because he's not on at the moment, and it's nothing to do with me. I did not take over his show. He somehow left the studio and now has left me here all alone to try to keep you people entertained. So I'll continue to keep talking. Now you're there. Okay, I see you now.
Can you hear
Well,
me?
I see a yellow screen. I don't see you yet.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
I don't know what to do to get you. I see just an orange screen. You're half the screen. I'm the other half. I see your name, Nick. So you are. Okay, here you come. Maybe that's you now. Now we're kind of diminished a little bit.
You can't see me?
Listen, Nick, this is your StreamYard, not mine. So I cannot do anything from my end.
Okay, well, hey, how about we just keep chatting and I'll try and get myself. Can you at least hear me on the microphone?
I have you on my phone, but I don't have you on. I can't hear you, and I'm sure can anybody hear Nick? See,
can you guys hear me talking? Anybody
comments.
Say something in the chat.
We are in good hands, Nick. Don't worry. Jay, please discuss the trade routes. Okay, someone wants me to discuss the trade routes. Okay, Anthony Mark says.
Okay,
yes,
they can hear me. They can hear me. So
I'm
gonna hear him. Yeah, I'm gonna try and get my mic working, and you just keep talking, and I'll try and get my my camera working. Okay.
Anthony Mark says. Say something again, Nick.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, you're on. I can hear you now. Yes, you are on. So let's continue going. Nick, they want me to talk about the trade route. I'll tell you. I wish I had my PowerPoint here because I'd show you the trade route. This is another real big problem, and this is something that Patricia Corona found. Patricia Corona is a scholar from Denmark. She got her doctorate at School of Oriental and African Studies there in London. I was a friend of hers before she died. When I did my first debate in 1995, before I did that debate at Cambridge University, I went up to her office there at Cambridge University itself, and I went through about 10 different areas that she wanted to help me out. And I had put together 10 different challenges, historical challenges to the Quran and to Islam and to the Prophet Muhammad, looking at from a historical standpoint. So that was back in 1995. She reads and writes 15 languages, archaic languages. So she is devastating because she goes to all the original documents and reads them in their original form. Now, she was looking at a map back in the 1970s, And she was looking at a map of 7th century Arabia, and she realized that there was a real problem with the trade route theory. The trade route theory started from the premise that when all the trade went from India in the east over to the Mediterranean in the west, it had to go through the Arabian Sea and then up through the I'm trying to think of the waterway that went up. I better look at a map so I know what I'm talking about. But it had to go up between Persia and what was then the Sassanid Empire and Arabia. And so that's why it went up to the Arabian Gulf. That's what I'm looking for, the Arabian Gulf. So it went from the Arabian Sea up to the Gulf, and then it went across what was today Jordan and Syria over into the west. So it went this direction over into the west. And that trade route had always been from China, India, and the east going over to the Mediterranean world. The problem was the Sassanians, who are the Persians. They're in what is today Iran. Now I can see the top of your head, Nick. I can't see the rest of you. Okay, now you're on board. Can you speak?
Hello. I'm back. Am I back?
Since there was that trade route that went through, that was okay as long as that trade route remained open. The Sassanians, who were in what is today Iran and Iraq, then had a war with the Byzantines, who were off in the west. And that war stopped that trade route. And so the trade had to be redirected from Arabian Sea down to the southern area of what is today Saudi Arabia. What is the Arabian Peninsula? What is today Yemen and Oman? And had to be taken off. Well, their goods had to be taken off at Aden, and from Aden it had to go all the way up 1,200 miles up to Gaza in the north. So it went from Aden to Najran to Sana'a to Taif, down to Mecca, up to Yathrib, up to Khaybar, Tabuk, and then up to Gaza. Those are the major trading routes. And that's the trade route theory put up by Dr. Montgomery Watt in the 1900s, early 20th century. Muslims loved it because that showed them why Mecca had to be important. Now, that trade route theory that's what I was taught. Anybody that was taught Islamics, we were taught the trade route theory. That's why Mecca became important. That's why Medina became important, because it was a center of trade north, south, east, and west after the 6th century up until the 7th century. Here's the problem. If you look at a map, you'll see it right away. If you look at a map of Arabia, you will notice that Sana'a, Najran, Taif, Yathrib, Tabuk, and all the way up to Gaza are on a western plateau of the Arabian Peninsula, on the western plateau. Mecca is not on that plateau. It's off the plateau, about 1,000 meters. So you'd have to come off from Taif, go down to Mecca, then come back up to get to Yathrib. That's the problem. And she said Mecca is not on the western plateau. It is not on. It is not an oasis. There is no water there. There's only one well. There was Zamzam well. It could not have accommodated any caravans. Therefore, let's look at Mecca. So she decided to go back to now remember, she reads and writes 15 languages. One of the world authority on all the archaic languages. How many Muslims read and write 15 languages archaic? I don't even know of one. She's way ahead of the rest of the world.
That's insane.
She went back to all the documents from the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, all the way up into the 8th century. Sorry, I should go this direction. No, this direction. You're right. She looked at all these documents written in Akkadian, in Aramaic. She read in Greek. She looked at all the documents coming in from the Roman world. She went to all the documents from Sassanian. She could read these documents, these trading documents, and couldn't find any. What do you have in your arm there?
A ferret.
What is that?
It's a ferret.
It's a weasel, isn't it? Or is it a link? What is it?
It's a ferret.
I've never seen one of those before in someone's arms. Okay, let's continue on. So she couldn't find any reference to a city called Mecca in any of these documents, yet they were supposed to be completely. This is all this part of the area that these documents are from. She went and she looked and she tried to find the spices, the 15 spices that existed in the Meccan trade, and she could find any spice from Mecca at all. They were either from India or from far away in China, or they were from Eritrea and what is today known as Eritrea in Ethiopia, the Abyssinian areas. And all the trading documents coming from the western coast of India had no Arabic names on them for one very good reason. Take a look at the map again, and you will see. I wish I had the map in front of me. I could show you. When you look at the southern reaches of the Arabian Peninsula, go up you see a Red Sea going up the western coast of Arabia. The Red Sea is a waterway. Why would you take all your goods off at Aden, coming across the Arabian Sea, take everything off at Aden, go 1,250 miles by land, when you have a waterway you can use? Remember, taking any goods on water is much cheaper than taking anything across land, because you just use the wind. You don't have to protect them. If you go across land, you have to use camels. You have to feed them. You have to water them. You have to pay. You have to pay whenever you water them. You have to, not only that, you have to protect them, and it's a lot slower. So it made no sense to go by land. It most likely went by water. So she went back to all the trading documents from the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and found that they were all of them were maritime. Everything that was on the trading documents that you could find in the western coast of India, in places like Gujarat and everywhere else, had Ethiopian names and Abyssinian names. There were no Arab names because the Arabs were not on the waterways at that time. The Arabs were in the deserts. They were camel herders. They were not water people, waterfarers, nothing like the Abyssinians. And so that's why she pretty debunked that in 1977. And then in 1983, or is it 1985, she wrote a book called Meccan Trade and the Rise of Islam, which destroyed the entire trade route theory that had been put together by Montgomery Watt, which destroyed any notion of a place called Mecca. So then she decided, well, let's find out about this place called Mecca, because remember, Mecca is where Adam and Eve were sent to in chapter 7, verse 24 of the Quran, when they were thrown out of the Garden of Eden up in space. The Garden of Eden in the Quran is up in space. It's not on Earth. They were thrown out of that garden. So that's the very first settlement in the history of mankind. In chapter 21, verse 51 to 71 in the Quran stipulates that Abraham was there in the Kaaba, destroying all the idols there. So evidently it must have existed in 1900 BC when Abraham lived. And according to all the Muslims and almost all the Orientalists, it was a center of trade more south, east, and west. So someone should have known about Mecca, right? If it's the oldest city in mankind, if it's been around since the time of Abraham, if it's been around certainly at the time of Muhammad, certainly someone should have known about it. She couldn't find any documentation, not one reference to this city until 741. 741? You're talking about the 8th century. That's 100 years after Muhammad. It does not appear on any map. Look at all the maps. You can look at the maps from the 6th century, from the 7th century, from the 8th century. It does not appear on any map until 900 AD. That's the 10th century. So why are Muslims saying that Mecca is the city that Muhammad lived in, when there is no Mecca in the 7th century? Go to Mecca today. Go to Mecca today and look at all the cranes that are around the Kaaba, all these cranes that are building all these huge skyscrapers. They're building 62 skyscrapers, and whenever you build a skyscraper, you've got to dig down to get your roots. You've got to go down to the sand. When you dig down into an archaic city anywhere in the world, you're going to find artifacts, right? So Dan Gibson went to these archaeologists from Saudi Arabia at a meeting 2 years ago, and he asked,
"Hey Jay, can you hear me, buddy?
In Mecca, what have they found when they have dug down in the sand? Have they found anything?" They haven't found even one item, except hold on a bit. They did find ruins to an old Ottoman fort from the 1400s. That's the earliest they could find, a ruin to an Ottoman fort in the 1400s. Can you see the problem? If you're going to talk about Mecca, you've got to place it in the 7th century. You've got to have a Mecca for Muhammad to have lived there. You've got to have a Mecca for the Quran to have been written there. You've got to have a Mecca for Muhammad to all these stories. But then you've got to stop and think, hold on a minute. Everything I know about Muhammad in Mecca, everything I know about the Quran being put together comes from the 9th and 10th century, redacted back onto the 7th century. They got the wrong man at the wrong place doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Thank God I don't have to defend that book, and thank God I don't have to defend that man, and thank God I don't have to defend Islam. Not with historical criticism. Remember, everything I've said in the last half hour, it's almost going an hour now, everything I've said in the last hour is absolutely neutral. I have not attacked Islam. I am not attacking Muslims. This is not a Christian polemic. This is a historical polemic, which means anybody can use what I've just said. It is as neutral as you can get. This has nothing to do with my Christianity, though I love the Lord Jesus Christ, though I love my Bible, and I always come back to my Bible, because this book has gone through every one of these criticisms. Every one of these criticisms was applied to the Bible back in the 1800s and the 1900s by Wellhausen and the Debunking school there in Germany. That's how we get redacted criticism, source criticism. All these criticisms had applied to the Bible, and the Bible has passed every criticism.
Jay,
that's why I thank God for my Bible. And I say to you, Muslims, this may sound difficult. I know it's difficult watching this. I know it's difficult hearing this. But before you get off and start calling me an Islamophobe Muslim hater. I've not said anything that's hateful. I've not said anything that is Islamophobic. I love you guys and gals because you're the most precious people I've spent 38 years of my life dedicated to. And the reason I love you is because of the passion you have for God. But you've got the wrong God. And I love the passion you have for Revelation, but you got the wrong book. And I love the passion you have for Muhammad, but you've got the wrong man. Come back to the right God, the right book, and the right man. Come on home. We're waiting for you. We'd love to have you. Okay, Nick, over to you.
Can you even hear me, brother?
I still can't hear you, no. But can the others hear you? If the others can hear you, I think that's fine. We can go on.
But
as long as anybody else can hear you, you can just write your notes to me. You see the chat place there? Just ask me.
Okay, I'll do that then. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll just write my notes.
Can people just tell me if you can hear Nick and me?
No, they can. They can hear me.
I'm looking at the chat. They can hear me. Can you hear Nick? Yes. You could say, if someone could write, yes, we can hear both. Okay, Nick, they can hear you. I can't hear you, but they can hear you. So go ahead. Just write what you want. Either write it you wrote in your phone or write it on the bottom there, and I'll see what you're doing. I don't need to hear you. I just need to know what your question is.
Kind of spelt it a little weird. Change of narration.
Okay, you want me to talk about the change in narrations, and this is what let me just go explain that real quickly. The change in narrations is what we know as the isnad, Now, everything that you hear from Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, Tirmidhi, or Ibn Hisham, or Al-Waqidi. Ibn Hisham, Al-Waqidi write the biography. That's written in 833 and 835. Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, they write from 870 on. Those are the hadith, the sayings of Muhammad. Then you have Al-Tabari, who writes in 923. He writes the tafsir, which are the commentaries, and the tahrif, which are the histories. Just to give you a quick lesson of the Islamic traditions. All of those are written down, as I said earlier, 200 to 300 years after the fact. Now, how did they get their material? Well, let's just lose Al-Bukhari, who's the most authoritative. He has 9 volumes of the sayings of Muhammad. Where did he get those 9 volumes from? In every one of those sayings, you have what they call an isnad. So-and-so told so-and-so, who told so-and-so, who told so-and-so, who got it from the Prophet. These are lists of oral tradition. Everything is based on oral tradition. Nobody wrote any of these so-and-so, any of these hadith down. So in 850 to 870, the last 20 years of his life, Al-Bukhari was given 600,000 of these sayings. 600,000. He was to look through them all and whittle them down as to which were authentic and which had to be thrown out. So he whittled them down all the way down to 7,397. So from 600,000, he whittled them down to 7,397. Let's just say 7,400. Meaning that he threw out 98% and only retained 2%. 2%. So what did he do with the other 98%? He threw them away. We don't have them today. And the 9 volumes of Al-Bukhari that we have today is that 2% of what Muhammad said. Now, this is all from the 9th century, late 9th century, 240 years after Muhammad. Can you see a problem with that, Nick?
Yeah.
Well, I can see a problem with that. That's all based on oral tradition. And the chain of narration are all 200 to 300 years of oral tradition. Here's my problem. Oral tradition, yes, it's just hearsay. That's correct. And the problem with hearsay, Nick, is this. You go to a birthday party when you're a child, and you tell something to someone in their ear. They tell it to the next person. They tell it to the next person. That's called Chinese whispers or telephone. After about 15 minutes of telling 20 people, the person at the end then says what they heard, and they compare it with what was first said. And it's two completely different things, right? And it's a great game. If they can change that much within 20 minutes, can you imagine what happens in 200 years of oral tradition? Oral tradition, by definition, is open to embellishment. It's open to corruption. Therefore, almost everything that we get from the 9th and 10th century, I do not trust, especially when I look and see what they're telling me in the 8th and 9th and 10th century, and they don't at all reflect. Yes, my headphones are on. Can you hear them?
Just wish I could talk. Yeah.
Say something now.
Hello. Hello.
Can you say something?
Yeah, I'm trying right now. Hello.
Can you say something?
Hello, hello, hello. Test.
No, I can't hear you still. That's okay. Just keep writing. Yes, my headphones are on, and I can hear myself, and I'm assuming you can hear me. But for some reason, I'm not getting you. That's okay. The others can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I wish I could hear you too. Sorry, Nick. This is one of the problems I've heard that happens with StreamYard. It's the communication is very weak on it. Zoom webinar works much better. Even Skype tends to work better. But for live broadcast, you need to use StreamYard. It comes with the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with the narration. The whole problem with Hadith narration on your in your title, you have Hadith. You need a D in there after HADITHS. If you could correct that when you after the show, you can do that after the show.
Okay.
Now, as far yes, let's take some questions from the audience. Okay, I'll look at if there are any questions. If people could put question first and then write their question, I'll know to look at that because there's been a lot of stuff that's gone ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've seen. Everybody can hear you, Nick, and they can hear me. I'm just waiting for any question from the audience that they want to throw at me. So while we're waiting for questions, just to wrap up what I was saying about narrations, because of the fact they're so late, nobody trusts them anymore. And because of the fact that they talk about things that just don't exist in the 7th century. They've got Mecca wrong, they've got the Qibla wrong, they've got Muhammad wrong, they've got the name Islam wrong, they've got the name Muslim wrong, and they've got the Quran wrong. In every case, because of all these errors, people are distrusting them more and more. And what they're saying more and more now is we need to come back to the 7th century. I've not even got into the Arabic. The Arabic that is now found in the 7th century in the middle part of Arabia where Mecca and Medina exist is Sabaean Arabic. Sabaean Arabic is much closer to Ethiopic. It is not the Arabic that we have in the Quran today. So where does this Arabic that we have in the Quran today come from? It does not come from Mecca and Medina. It actually comes from much further north. It comes from Petra. Well, have you heard Petra before? It is Nabatean Arabic. It's Southern Levant Arabic. It is Aramaic that has become Arabic, and that's why it doesn't have. What's ironic about it, it did not have dots and vowels when it was introduced in the 7th century. Sabaean Arabic did have dots and vowels. And if they had wanted to find, if God in his wisdom had wanted to find a language that could have accommodated his revelation, why didn't he use Sabaic Arabic, which would have accommodated both and that's why you wouldn't have had all these qira'ats. You wouldn't have had all these hundreds of different Qurans and thousands of differences. Okay. Jay, can you talk about what the Quran says Muhammad would pass leaving and returning to Mecca? Can you talk about what the Quran says of Muhammad would pass leaving and return? I think he's talking about I think he's referring to the Miraj when he went up to the 7 heavens. Is that what you think he's referring to, Nick? If that's you're talking about the Miraj, that's in chapter 17, verse 1, but it doesn't say anything in 17, verse 1. It just says he went from the great mosque to the farthest mosque. Here's the problem. How could there be the farthest mosque in Jerusalem before Muhammad died? There were no Muslims in Jerusalem before Muhammad died. So how could he have gone to a mosque in Jerusalem in chapter 17, verse 1? The Arabs didn't even get into Jerusalem until 638 and 639. Muhammad died in 632. So 6 years before they even got to Jerusalem, there's a mosque there that he went up to, and then he went to the 7 heavens. Can you see that's a historical anachronism? So even the Miraj is absolutely, completely wrong historically, and that's why I love historical criticism. It just destroys the Quran. It destroys Muhammad in one fell swoop. What is the difference between the Quran and the Hadith? The Quran is this book here. This is the Quran. The Hadith are the sayings of Muhammad. They are written by men, and they don't begin to appear until 870. This supposedly was written was revealed to Muhammad. This doesn't appear until this book right here. This book here. So I'm sorry, this book here. These are the ones that first come to back. So the Quran doesn't appear to the 8th century. The Hadith don't appear to the late 9th century. One is written by men. The Quran is their holy book. The Hadith are not their holy book. Okay, it just tells them what Muhammad said, supposedly. But we're pretty much throwing that out now. My best friend in my college was a Muslim, but that friend had to go home to Saudi Arabia. Okay. Would you... what is the difference between... Okay, palm tree, pillar of salt. Palm trees and pillar of salt. I don't know what that is. Question: why Christians was unable to support Jesus? What do you mean? We do support Jesus. I'm not sure what that question's about. Absolutely, I support him with every breath of I take and every thought I make. I support Jesus. Nick, great job. Nice to do it again. Not too many live religion channels. Not too many live religions. Had to go home, Shaw said. Christianity did not exist when Jesus was on the cross. Only once he rose from the dead did Christianity have its start. Without a risen Savior, there is no Christianity. Absolutely, Andy, and I would agree with that. But Christianity, even the word, is not the word that is. I mean, the word, they were called the Way before they became the followers of Christ. They were given that name later on. What's the religion of the Arabs and how many are there? The religion of Arabs, well, that's hard to know, Muhammad, because you have Arabs are all Muslim. They're also Zoroastrian. You have a lot of Christians who are Arabs. The vast majority of Arabs in the 7th and 8th century were, in the 6th and 7th, up until the 7th century, were Christian Arabs. But as you know, that in most Arab lands, Christianity has been destroyed systematically because of regulation, harassment, and also by violence. So Christians are leaving the Arab world and they're coming to the West. What is the origin of the Arabs and how many are there? I don't know what their origin of the Arabs is. I think most people would say that they go back to the Nabateans, and most of us who are now looking historically would say the origin of Arabic is from the Nabatean, as I said earlier, and also the name of many of the words in the Quran are Nabatean. Like the name Allah. Allah is a Nabatean word. It's the Ilaha, the God. It's nothing more than a title. It's not even a name. The name for Ilaha is Dushara, the god of the Nabateans, who has a wife, Alat. The goddess, which is Alusha, is her Al-Uzza is her formal name. That's found in the satanic verses in chapter 53, verse 19 and 20. So you've got a real problem there, Muslims. When you start unpacking that, I won't do that tonight because there's not enough time. When the Muslims pray at the mosque, Shaitan flees, pressing a wind behind himself after hearing the prayer. Okay. I'm your brother. Let's debate. Qatil Shah. I'm not sure you are able to debate, Qatil. I wish you knew. If you could prove and write something that's of value, then maybe we could debate. But until I know who you are and what you've done and what kind of standing you have, I'm just not going to debate anybody. I have to debate. Listen, I've debated 80 to 90 of the best Muslim scholars in the world, and I don't find anybody so far that's been able to answer this question. Jay, the description of land, of valleys, palm trees aren't found in Mecca. Good point, Bill. That's the big problem that Gibson found in this book. This is what we call Quranic Geography. This was written in 2011. He went back and he went to the Quran and he looked at all the geographical locations in this book, the Quran, and he found that there are 65 geographical locations in the Quran, but none of them fit Mecca. Not one of them fit Mecca. There was 3 different peoples that this prophet, remember, Muhammad's only found 4 times in the Quran. The name of Muhammad's only found 4 times. But the person, this prophet, this representative of God, is found numerous times, and he keeps on having contact with these people from Ud. 23 times he has contact with people from Ud. 24 times he has contact with people from Thamud, and 7 times people from Midian. Who are these people from Ud? Well, that's the Uz of the Bible. We know them pretty well. Who are the people from Thamud? Those are the Nabateans. That's the other name for Nabateans. And the people from Midian, well, they're the Midianites. Take a look on a map and see where Ud, Thamud, and Midian are. They're all around Petra in Jordan, 600 miles too far north. And he noticed that the references to this place where this prophet lived, that it had water, it had streams going, numerous streams, it had 2 valleys, it had trees, it had grass, it had clay, it had loam, it had olive trees. None of these exist in Mecca. There are no olive trees in Arabia at all. The only olive trees in the world are on the Mediterranean, 600 miles further north. So almost everything that you find in the Quran is not in Mecca. It's all in Petra. That's why he wrote this book in 2011. Now there have been many scholars that are now coming on board with this because the archaeological evidence is now supporting the documentary evidence, as I said earlier, is now supporting the manuscript evidence. Okay, if someone could tell me what I said is incorrect, that'd be fine. Kato, so why are you running? Well, Kato, what am I running from? I'm not. I'm right here. I'm not running anywhere. I think I'm sitting down. God loves his creation. Can't debate when reading the Surah, Hadith, Quran. And Bedouins cult like, okay. Another's going home. Brother, would you let yourself kill for anyone who is fallen? What in the world is this guy asking? We don't kill anybody. In fact, we're the only religion that's a religion of peace. I don't know of any other place in any scripture that says love your enemies, like you said, found in Matthew 5, verse 44. No other scripture says to love your enemies. For you have heard it say in verse 43, to love your friends and hate your enemies. I now say to love your enemies. Remember, the only time that Jesus was ever defended was by Stephen there in the Garden of Gethsemane. And when Stephen took out a sword and cut off the ear of the servant, what did Jesus do? He put the ear back on the servant, turned towards Stephen, and said, put away your sword. For he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. That's my Jesus. He wouldn't even let his disciples defend him. That's why we do not use the sword to defend Jesus Christ. He doesn't need any defense. Your prophet Muhammad, take a look and see what he did with the sword. Look and see what your prophet Muhammad did to the Jews living in Medina in 624, 625, and 627. 624, when the Jews stood against him, the Banu Qurayza family, he threw them out. In 625, when the Banu Nadir stood against him, he threw them out. In 627, when the Banu Qurayza family, the last remaining Jewish tribe, remember, the last remaining Jewish family who had been there for hundreds of years, Muhammad had only moved to Medina 5 years earlier. What did he do with those 800 men? He slit their throats in one afternoon, took all the women as concubines for his men and the children as slaves. Now, we have a word for that. We call that genocide. I want you right now to condemn that. I want to see if you can condemn that. See, I have never seen a Muslim in 38 years condemn your prophet for what he did to the Jews. There were no Jews left after 627. They had been there for hundreds of years. He had only been there for 5 years. He was from Mecca. And what was he doing in Medina as a guest? Why did he then destroy and throw out all the Jews, commit genocide, and destroyed all the men by cutting their throats? 800 in one afternoon. You can get that story in Ibn Hisham. You can get that story in Al-Waqidi. You can get that story in Al-Bukhari. You can get that story in Al-Tabari. I've given you 4 sources of your sources from your traditions about your prophet. Show me what Jesus did. Show me one place that he used a sword. Show me one person that he killed. Jesus would not even let his disciples defend it. God bless. I'm so glad we have Jesus as an example. Folks, come on back to Jesus. He is the man of peace. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ is the only gospel of peace. Come on home. Come on home. He's well worth defending.
Amen.
Yeah, he won't let us do so. Okay, any other questions there? Quran 929 is a peaceful time. If you look at chapter 929, that says make war on the people of the book until they get paid the jizya tax. If you don't just stop at 929. In fact, I'll ask any Muslim, I'll ask Qatal Shah, can you show me one verse of peace in your Quran? Give me one verse that says you're to have peace with me. Show me one verse. You got 5 minutes because I have to go pretty soon. I want you to tell me in 5 minutes, can you show me one verse that says you're to have peace with me? Not one verse. And I've asked this for 38 years. Not one Muslim has been able to find one verse. I'm waiting. Let's see if Qatal Shah can come up with a peaceful verse for me, that you're to have peace with me. Okay, not with other Muslims. You'll find peace with other Muslims. I want for a Christian or a Jew. And I will show you verse after verse after verse. That's what you're supposed to do with me when you find me. And I'll show you about 5, 6 verses. In fact, there's 150 violent verses in the Quran. And many of them are leveled against me, a Christian or a Jew. Let me see if any other Stephen cut off the ear. It was Peter. I'm sorry. Did I say Stephen? You're right. Sorry, Gabe. It was Peter. You're right. I misquoted on that. Okay, Jay. The original two of the Quran, how the parchment they were written on, the writing over a different form from that was washed out. Yeah, you're talking about the Yemen Quran, the Yemeni Quran, which is the Sana manuscript. The Sana manuscript was discovered in 1975. I don't have a copy of it with me. I have it on my computer. I got the entire copy. Al-Fadi is doing his doctoral thesis on that manuscript. And when they looked at some of the pages, they noticed that there was an underlayer, what they call a palimpsest. This is quite typical of parchments that are made on animal skin. You can wash off the animal skin and then write over top of it. The problem is, after hundreds of years, the ink from the lower script starts to bleed through, and you can then see the 2 inks. And that's what they found with this palimpsest. So they put it under ultraviolet light, and you can separate the 2 texts, the lower and the upper. And what they found were 63 verses in the lower text. The upper text is dated to about 705. The lower text is dated to 690, probably 680 to 699. So it's just below than the upper one. And when you look at those 63 verses, there are 70 variants. That means 70 difference between the lower verses and the Quran that I have in my hand here, proving that it was a completely different Quran. It was not the same Quran. There was all kinds of mistakes, all kinds of errors. Yet this was what we call a nascent Quran. This is the beginning of the Quran, which makes sense because it was introduced by Abdul Malik. Abdul Malik is the one that introduced the Quranic script on the Dome of the Rock. He's the one that introduced the name Muhammad. He is the one that introduces the Shahada, and he introduces on the coins and on the Dome of the Rock. Once you introduce that this person, that this is the prophet, then you've got to have a book. That's why the book had to be written. And that's why his son Al-Walid is the one that started flowing out lots of these different Qurans. But you remember, these Qurans don't then get to appear until 736. That's another 30 years later. And these ones don't agree with the other ones that come after it. And then there's a whole proliferation of Qurans after 736 up until 905. So anyhow, it's great to be able to talk about these things now because Muslims have not done this kind of homework. We have done this homework for them. How you're faced with the truth, you still deny. Anthony says that. Come on back, big win. And we love to see, as our Quran asks us to love everyone. Where does your Quran say to love me? Where does it say that? Give me one verse. You may say that because you live here in the West. You have to because you're using Christian theology, but you cannot use Quranic theology because what does it say in the Quran? Slay the unbeliever wherever ye find them. Besiege them. Lay in wait with them with every kind of ambush. That's chapter 9, verse 5. Slay the unbeliever until there is no more fitna in the land. That means there's no more unbelief and all have faith in Allah. That's chapter 8, verse 39. Go to chapter 47. The first 3 verses tell you who a believer is and who an unbeliever is. And then verse 4 says, cut off the heads of the unbeliever. You want me to go on? There's verse after verse after verse of the Quran that shows you're to slay me, you're to have nothing to do with me, you're to make war upon me. It's chapter 5, verse 41. Have nothing to do with the Jews and Christians, for they are friends of one another, and he who is a friend of them is one of them. I mean, your Quran is so full of hatred, so full of violence, so full of any despicable, it's just full of despicable violence that's against anybody who's not a Muslim. So I'm asking you again, show me a verse that you're to have peace with me. Show me one verse that you have to have peace with me, a Christian or a Jew or a pagan. I'm a Christian, but I want to ask you for what Jews and pagans as well. You can't find it. I've been asking this for 38 years. All right, let's go on down. Let's see what else. Are there any other questions? I'm going to have to bring this to a halt because it's getting too late. My wife is now calling me, so I do need to make sure that I don't spend too much more time.
Yeah.
You discuss how they claim it was Moses who told them how to many prayers and how Abraham and his sons built the Kaaba. Can you discuss how? That's called the Miraj. That's in chapter 17, verse 1 that I was talking to you about. But remember, the Miraj actually comes from the traditions. The reference in the Quran that Muslims point to is chapter 17, verse 1, which completely destroys it because you can't have Muhammad going in the back of a winged horse from Mecca up to Medina. From Mecca up to Jerusalem in 621 when the Miraj supposedly took place, because there were no Muslims in Jerusalem in 621. There was no mosque there in 621 for him to go through. So that's a historical anachronism. Is not misunderstanding anything. The man has devoted his life basically to study what you're sitting here arguing about. You have not done. Where do I find you on the internet? I'm on Fander Films, Pfanderfilms, just Fander Films, and look and see all the films I've just put up in the last 2 months. This is where this whole explosion has happened with this Qira'ah problem, the preservation of the Quran. We're destroying the Quran, and we're using their own Qurans against them. We're using these Qurans right here against them. We're not making this up. Folks, everything that I'm saying you can buy on the internet. You can get these Qurans. These are now, you can buy them. These come from Illinois, here in the United States. Though they're all still being printed, they've been around for 1,000 years. This is not new. Everything I'm telling you, please, I could be lying. You're right. So check me out and see if these Qurans are different. Look at that video that's on Fander Films, just put up a week ago, and it's 2 hours long. It explains everything that we've been talking about tonight.
Andy, I'll put a link in this description.
Listen,
after
Nick, I do need to run, but it's now we've been going for an hour and a half.
Yeah, hey, look at your phone.
To get back because I thought we were only going for an hour. Yeah, you got the phone there? Okay, let me see what you said here. Okay, I'll come back again, Nick. Next time we'll make sure that we can both talk to each other. Keep going, Nick. This is God bless you for what you're doing. I just love your channel. You've got
Thank you.
7,000 subscribers. Well done. You're doing a great
Thank
job.
you, brother.
We're going to work together. I'll certainly help you again. If there are questions that come up that people want you specifically to ask me, write the questions down, and what we'll do is go through each one of the questions. We'll make it live again so people can throw questions at us again.
Okay, cool.
God bless
Thank
you.
you so
I've got to
much.
go.
Yeah.
This is Jayden here in the United States. Over and out.
Bye. Well, there you go, guys. That was Dr. Jay Smith. That was a pretty good show for my first revamping of my live shows. I got to say, I'm pretty honored to have someone like him come on. I don't hate Muslims either. And it's just, I don't know, I'm into truth and I'm into history. I'm into learning. I encourage all Muslims to come to my live streams and have, professional kind of debates, like as long as you guys keep it cool. I don't mind like heated discussion, just no racism or like stupid shit or swearing or anything. Okay. But next time I have a live stream, of course, I want Muslims, Christians, anyone come back and engage with us. And thank you guys for coming. God bless you all too. I don't know what was going on. I think maybe someone was right. If Jay would have just rejoined the stream, maybe his microphone, his headphones would have worked again, but whatever. I can't believe he came on my show. I'm a little flustered. Like, I've been watching the guy for years. He's full of knowledge. Like, I'm really glad he came on and talked to you guys. So, who do I have coming on? I have someone for the next show. Nice fiction. Quetta Shahi. You're funny. Why was it fiction? Everything he was reading was like from the Hadiths and the Qurans and stuff. I don't understand. Like, but anyway, you're welcome to come back next time he comes on. And I would love to host a debate on my channel of you and him, but I don't think he was running from you. Like, the guys debated like some serious people, Shabir Ali, like all the top Muslim apologists, like he debates at universities and stuff. So I don't think he was like running from you. He just wants to make sure that it's going to be worth his time to debate you, I guess. But we could set that up. I'll try and set it up with him. Like, I just kind of met the guy, so I don't want to push it too hard, but I will try and set something like that up. I would love to have a Jay Smith debate on my channel. Are you kidding me? That would be cool. If you can keep it like professional, Quotal, then yeah, I'll try and set it up for sure. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. I have another guy that's going to come on here. And you guys know the story of the woman caught in adulteress, right? In the Bible, where they're all going to stone her. Well, I don't know if many of you know this, but apparently that's like a later addition that's not found in, well, we're led to believe that it's not found in majority of our manuscripts. But I got a scholar that's going to be coming on here on Wednesday, I think, not tomorrow, but the next day. He's going to give a whole presentation as to why the lady stoned in adulteress, caught in adulteress, is actually authentic. He's going to show you the manuscripts that it's in and that it's not in. And that's going to be cool because that's one of my favorite stories from the Bible. So I was kind of sad when I found out that it was a later addition, but this guy says it's not. So make sure you guys come on Wednesday for that. Also, I'm not really in, I love debates, but I'm not a debater myself. So I'm kind of looking for someone to debate a King James onlyist. I told the guy I would have his debate come on here soon. He's probably waiting. So if any of you guys wants to debate the fact that we shouldn't, like, you don't have to use the King James Bible. This guy is a King James onlyist, so he's all about the King James. And I think he's like one of those people that thinks you're going to go to hell if you don't read the King James, right? So if anyone would be into debating that topic, shoot me an email. You can find my email on my YouTube channel under the About section. And that would be cool because otherwise I'm going to have to debate him myself. And I've never done a debate in my life, so not really looking forward to that. So let me know if anyone wants to debate a King James onlyist, okay? Email me and I'll set that up right away. And make sure you guys come by on Wednesday and check out what... his name is James Snap. He's a minister in the States, and he's going to talk about the woman caught in adulteress. That's this Wednesday, okay? All right, so it's good to see you guys. Hey, Andy, you're not a King James onlyist, eh? Maybe you would want to debate. Let me know, brother. I need someone to debate this guy. He's really, really wanting to debate, so... Katola, you would debate him against King James onlyism? You could, but it seems like you only want to debate Islam. I don't have a problem with that, but this debate's about King James onlyism. Anyway, let me know, guys, because I don't really want to do it myself. I've never done a debate before, so I don't think I would do that good. So if anyone wants to defend the position that you don't have to only read a King James Bible to be saved, I would love for someone to come on and debate that. Okay. So it's been good hanging out. Thanks for coming. Thank you for the one super chat that I got from Johnson Videos. And it looks like I got a new channel member, Andy. Cool. Thank you, brother, for becoming a member. Now that the live streams are happening more, there's perks for that. You get custom emojis and GIFs or GIFs or whatever they're called. So, and you get a little badge beside your name. And I think I'm going to make members, certain members, I'm going to make moderators too. I think just a little extra bonus or whatever. But yeah, that's cool. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Mohammed. Thank you to all the Muslims for coming by. I want to say it again that I don't hate Muslims at all. I would love for us all to just be part of one faith. And you know what? If I thought Islam was true, I would be a Muslim. Honestly, I would. I just don't think from studying both scriptures. Like I said, I wasn't raised in a religious family. I came to the conclusion on my own from studying, and like I'll keep studying Islam, but I just don't think that it's, I don't know. I don't have, you know what I mean? So thanks, guys. Yeah, I love you guys too. So thank you for watching, and you guys are all welcome to come back anytime. And I will, Quatal, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but I'll try and set up a debate for you. I don't know if I'll be able to get Jay Smith to debate you. I'll try, but I'll try and find someone else for you to debate Islam versus Christianity for, okay? I'll try Jay, but if I can't get Jay, I'll try someone else. So thanks for watching. Make sure you guys come to the next live streams. I had a blast, and see you guys later. God bless everybody.